Hey, welcome everybody to Tom and James, our Friday episode number 37,523.2, or however many it is. Hey, just as a reminder, you can find us both on our websites, hopeforourtimes.com, and also James, you can find him not just on his website at Calvary Chapel Signal Hill, but also on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. Same with mine also, but I would encourage you, by all means, go to my website for my info. We're looking to have our own server there at hopeforourtimes.com. I also have daily news updates, amongst many other things, including Tom and James are there on my website. Welcome, sir.
Hey, bro. Glad to see you. Really quickly, I wanted to just add to that. I know that I have received 100 plus emails. I didn't even get to talk to you about this, Tom, regarding some of the missing Tom and James shows on your Hope for Our Times YouTube channel. And I just want to say that any of the ones that are missing, we have them on the Real Hope with Tom and James YouTube that you can go get. Or, of course, please go to Hope for Our Times. We got them on both places. So just to let you know, in case some of you are wanting to stay navigating on YouTube, and then Rumble as well. We both have Rumble channels. I think it's Hope for Our Times. Tom,
yes.
Is that what it is? It's Hope for Our Times on Rumble.
Rumble also. Yep.
Yeah, and it's also for me, James Cadiz on Rumble. So Calvary Chapel Signal Hill on YouTube, or Real Hope with Tom and James if you're wanting to look at our show together. Anything that me and Tom do together, we post on that Real Hope with Tom and James. And that seems to be a little less off the radar. So.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. What happened was we got censored by YouTube. We went through steps, and then it looked like we had a technical error on our end. Then we found out that wasn't the case. YouTube did censor us, and then YouTube, James, took down 14 months of videos. And so I was getting emails from everybody, why did you close your station? I said, I didn't. Monday morning, they put our YouTube channel back up. All of a sudden, all the videos came back up, and they're all there again. But this is just another reason why we've got to have our own platforms and why we are doing what we're doing, why we're on Rumble, why we have our own websites. This is just another reason for it. Obviously, YouTube is like the social media are the easiest way to reach the masses, but the reality of it is we talk about things that certain people out there don't want to hear about.
My goodness, bro. I cannot believe that they did that. But I'm sorry, but that really bothers me. 14 months worth of information.
It had a very negative effect. I mean, it was a very negative effect for that week. But at least, anyways, we're moving on. We're moving forward. And we have a lot to tick people off again about today. So you ready? By the way, I got to say this. Look, we match. Woo! Does that make you pretty awesome, huh? All right, let's go. Okay, we have so much to talk about. We're going to get to the Iran-Israel situation coming up because it is unbelievably escalating. But right now, real quick, we got several things I'm going to bring up. Pope Francis, he went to the Ur of Chaldees. He went to Babylon to basically bless Islam, Christianity, bring them together and say, we're all one big happy family. It was a lie. Did you catch that? He went there? Went to Babylon.
Yeah,
Isn't that interesting? Babylon, of all places?
Bro, I have talked about this on numerous occasions. The very first time that the Pope went out and made a comment where he said that it's okay to use aborted fetal tissue in vaccines. Yeah. And if you want to take a vaccine, you can go ahead and do it. It reminded me of the fact that the Antichrist, I believe, would be a secular man, a man who was not a Jew, a man who had no desire for the things of God or the word of God. But yet he needs a false prophet that brings in the religious secular groups or brings in the religious groups to reconcile with this secular Antichrist. And I think that this Pope is such a perfect example of how easily that can happen. And I'm not saying that the Pope is the false prophet, right? But I can tell you this right now. whoever this Antichrist is, and he'll be revealed after we're raptured, but whoever this Antichrist is, this Pope could very well be a person who fits that bill to kind of bring in religion like that, and to sort of rectify what the Antichrist is doing.
You bet. Revelation chapter 13, the false prophet has 2 horns like a lamb, but he speaks like a dragon. You look at this Pope, you go, definitely a preview of coming attractions.
And you know what, bro? It's interesting. I don't know if you've watched the progression with the Catholic Church, but every Pope we've had has sort of progressed in that direction. And what's really interesting was the Pope that came after John Paul. That Pope he came from the conservative think tank portion of the Jesuit priests, and he didn't last very long because he was too conservative of a Pope. And so it was just very interesting how all that came along. Yeah. And then when Francis came in, oh my goodness, you're watching it. You're watching. I mean, I think that he is the Joe Biden of all the popes.
Oh, there's another Pope. We don't have time to get into it today. Not another Pope. There's another Jesuit that's in the running to be the next Pope. And I'm reading about him. And this guy, it's really bothering. We'll get into that next time. I've got all kinds of information on this guy, and I'm looking going, man, which one of these two is the false prophet, the current one or this one that's in the runnings to be the next Pope? It's very interesting. Okay, let's move on from there because we got a lot. Top Chinese general. China must prepare for world war against the United States. So China and the United States, you and I have talked about it a long time, or many times I should say, where the U.S. is not this great country, this great, powerful superpower in the last days, but neither is China. And you kind of wonder, are they going to cancel each other out?
Well, the United States is the primary target right now of the globalist regime, okay? The bottom line is the globalists are coming after the United States. Joe Biden is accelerating that process. He's making it easy. When President Trump was in office, he was making that extraordinarily hard because he was saying, you know what? We're going to make China pay for what they did with the coronavirus. We're not going to give them what they want. And we're going to stand off and fight these globalists. Now, Joe Biden, of course, is embracing these globalists. And yes, he is making the Chinese pay. As a matter of fact, I think Joe Biden's making the Chinese pay way more than Trump was making the Chinese pay, except he's making the Chinese pay his son and his family and all of his other family members. But that's about all. So the bottom line is the Chinese. I know, I couldn't resist it. It's absolutely true. It is absolutely true. So what's going to end up happening is the Chinese are going to do what they're going to do. By the way, this is very interesting. While Joe Biden is looking to make our military weaker and more destructive by going out of his way to spend hundreds of millions of dollars in bringing fitted clothes for pregnant women who want to fly airplanes or fly fighter jets, then China is actually saying, well, you know what? We want to make our men more masculine. We want to make our military more masculine because we want stronger individuals to be able to fight our wars. And what's really interesting, if you look at what the Chinese is doing right now, it's kind of scary. The Chinese right now in their naval fleet actually has warships that are far more capable than some of our warships. And I never thought I would see the day where that was going on, and they're growing. So what's going to happen is this. What's going to happen is if things go the way I think they're going to continue to go, if God somehow doesn't miraculously intervene or something like that happens, China and the United States are just going to destroy each other, right? And the United States will help China be destroyed because when China takes over, destroys the United States, then the rest of the globalists are going to go, oh no, they've gone way too far. They have way too much power, and they will end up becoming the next target. And I can promise you that the whole world will be able to ostracize the Chinese quite easily, because then they will shift the blame for the coronavirus on the Chinese, and the Chinese will be done and through. And lo and behold, the Bible doesn't talk about China or the United States in the last days. Are we surprised? You can't make this stuff up, bro.
Yeah.
But that's the reality of what we're looking at right now.
There's a lot more stuff we can't make up. The next one's going to be real quick. You have a story, and it was about, I didn't even know this existed until I was watching you and Don. You guys did a message the other day on the temple, which we're going to get into in just a second, the Temple Mount and the coming temple. But in there at the end of it, you brought up an article. It was, let me guess, it was pro-life evangelicals for Biden. And
yes,
were they offended? They're shocked that Biden didn't go pro-life?
Yes.
I mean, what were they thinking? These are people who said they're pro-life evangelicals, voted for Biden, and are shocked at what he's doing.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I am going to grab that screenshot right now because I want you guys to see this letter, because this is the ultimate example of insanity. And basically, the bottom line is what I'm about to describe to you is a perfect example of what happens when a drug dealer calls the police and tells the police that they got ripped off by another drug lord, right? That's what I call this the modern day equivalent of. These people vote in Joe Biden into office, okay? That's exactly what they do. And now they're upset at the result because they say that he did not do what they expected them to do. Let me flip over to this picture right here. You can see this. This is a picture of this nonsense with this letter. And it is unbelievable, but these people, this is what they're doing. They're writing this letter, and I'm going to read part of it to you. Actually, I don't even need to read part of it to you, but what I can just tell you is that in this letter, they're basically saying, we voted for you because we expected you to make a difference with abortion and to fight abortion, which is rich that they would even say that. It's absolutely crazy. And then they're disappointed that in this $1.9 trillion, it's actually a $2 trillion pork bill that they have filed, where they're paying money to train people how to be transgender aware in Pakistan and paying, all kinds of money. Not even 200 billion of this money, not even 200 billion of this $2 trillion is actually going to people who need help for the coronavirus. Everything else is just a bunch of pork spending. But what they're doing, these pro-life evangelicals for Biden are actually saying, we're very, very upset and we're very, very bothered because you did not include language to protect the Hyde Amendment in this bill. And so we're very upset. If you don't know what the Hyde Amendment is, the Hyde Amendment is a bill that basically says that taxpayer dollars cannot pay for abortion. The president of the United States prior to Joe Biden, that is Donald J. Trump, defended it. He defended it staunchly. He was the greatest guardian of anti-abortion of any country, of any president that we've ever had in U.S. history. And yet these fools who call themselves Christians brought together a coalition to put Joe Biden into office, and now they're mad that Joe Biden is wanting to kill babies. Now, that's rich.
That's
if you ask
absurd.
me, I mean, that's completely rich. And any of these people who regret voting for Joe Biden, well, you're a fool for doing it in the first place. And let me say, you know better. He ran out of a basement. He never answered a single question, just like he's not answering questions right now. By the way, he's broken the record. Prior to this time, I think it was Carter that was the only one that waited this long to have a word with the media, an unmitigated press conference. Joe Biden won't do it because his handlers won't let him, because he doesn't remember the ABCs. Heck, he doesn't even know the name of his wife sometimes, right? And this is the guy that's holding the codes to the nuclear weapon arsenal that we have. It is sad, but guess what? These guys brought it upon themselves because they stopped worshiping the God of their fathers. And that's the problem. And by the way, one of the guys that signs this is one of the presidents there at Fuller Seminary. And I actually call it Fuller Cemetery because they've gone so ridiculously left, it's not even funny. But that's kind of where we're at. It's a sad state of affairs when you think about it.
Yep. Terrible. I look at that. It's just terrible. There's a few more things. You have one. We don't have time to get into this at all. I'm going to encourage everybody to go back to James' program that he did on Wednesday about this guy who said that Jesus was a racist. Folks, you've got to go back and watch that one. We don't have time to go there right now, but James was showing me part of it, and I'm looking, going, "You've got to be." I couldn't even watch the whole thing, the whole video of that guy. It's just disturbing. But you did a great message on that. Okay, I'm going to bring up something else to you. I've got 2 more stories I want to get to. This one, you recorded a message this week with Don Stewart. I did one on Wednesday. You guys went into more detail than I did about the Temple Mount and the Saudis saying, hey, the Temple Mount doesn't belong to Islam. It belongs to the Jews. In fact,
Bro.
Isn't there, okay, there, in fact, you pull that up. Hey, Gabe, can you do me a favor? Can you put a map of Israel behind me so people can really get the full effect of what's going on? Okay, James, this article, that one, and there's so many other things on it, is just crazy, but we're watching this develop. It's unbelievable.
Bro, it's like nothing I've ever seen before. This article right here actually says Saudis say Temple Mount and Al-Aqsa Mosque is no longer important to Islam. And guys, let me just tell you how crazy this is. These pictures that I'm showing you right now are examples of some of the most prominent people in Saudi Arabia that are actually making the statements that they're actually making. It is unbelievable. It's like something like I've never seen before. And, you know, when you look at this, it's like I'm blown away at what I'm looking at here. Like if you look at this right here, this guy is correcting a person who calls himself Abdurrahim Al-Farah, who shows pictures of Jerusalem, actually of the Temple Mount specifically, and he says new pictures of occupied Jerusalem, the capital of Palestine. And now one of the most influential people in Saudi Arabia, tied to the Saudian family, the royal family, says, hey, look, it's the eternal capital of the Jewish people. And the hashtag that's in Arabic is one that's growing very popular. And the hashtag basically refers to the fact that Jerusalem, specifically the Temple Mount, Al-Aqsa Mosque, is far more important to them than what is not even important to them anymore. That what's more important to them is Mecca and Medina. And it's very interesting that they're going in that route. And if you look at where my finger is, see where my finger is? Let me just switch over so you can see. If you look at where my finger is right there, that's the Golden Dome. That's not the Al-Aqsa Mosque. The Al-Aqsa Mosque is over here, right where my finger is right there. See that? And that's the one that they place the most importance upon. And now they're basically saying, forget it. It's not important to us anymore, which is incredibly significant because we know that the temple is going to have to be rebuilt on this mount. Now, there are a lot of absolutely cuckoo people that say that the temple is going to be rebuilt in the city of David, which is insane. The Bible doesn't say that. And I can't believe that even there are guys that are well known in the prophecy circles that are saying that. I can't believe it. It's cuckoo, right? But they're coming to that conclusion because they don't have faith and trust in the fact that God is going to facilitate the rebuilding of the temple on the exact location in which it was. And I believe it's going to be built right on top of that Golden Dome. Let me show you another picture that'll blow your mind. You see this picture here? That right there is a depiction of the temple landing on the same site as the Golden Dome. And again, this is another person very, very popular, tied to the royal family in Saudi Arabia, who says, dear brothers and sisters, join the Saudi hashtag. And then he gives that same hashtag in Arabic. He says the recent Saudi Twitter movement believes that there is no importance of the Temple Mount to Muslims and the waiting for the Jewish third temple, a new era, one of peace. Holy smokes.
This is, James, I'm looking at this and, you know, watching this all weekend. Been watching, you know, actually, I quoted on Wednesday on my program. I went back to, it was one of the leaders in Israel at the time, and it would put together a document. It was I think it was a 16-page booklet actually for Jerusalem, aka Palestine. And in it, this Islamic leader said that the Temple Mount belongs to the Jews. That was in 1924. And then that obviously got all changed when history was rewritten. And, you know, you look at this and you look at what's happening right now, and people have said, what's going to happen to the Temple Mount? They're never going to be able to build a temple there. No, listen, when God's in it, things can happen incredibly fast. James, you and I have both been to Israel many times. And
yes.
I was talking with some of my Israeli friends, about the talk that the temple would be in the city of David. You and I both know it's impossible. It's such a small area. It's impossible for it to even fit there.
Crazy.
It can't. And I
crazy.
asked why, and they said it's Americans. It is primarily driven by Americans who haven't visited there, and they're sold it, and it's exciting to them because they're thinking, oh, this is a way to resolve the problem. So for them, it's an easy way to resolve the problem because they can't see the temple going on the Temple Mount. But now you look at this and you're thinking, this is what, listen, I believe that the temple goes right where the gold dome is.
I agree.
Just like you. And I look at that and I'm thinking, man, it's coming. And hearing them say it. In fact, in one of the articles, you and Don quoted it. I quoted the same thing. It was a cartoonist who said something to the effect, he is looking forward to the coming third Jewish temple. And this cartoonist isn't just, he's not a guy like me just drawing pictures. He's the real deal.
Yeah, and this cartoonist, by the way, is a very, 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 very popular guy. Matter of fact, he's probably one of the most popular individuals in Saudi Arabia right now. His cartoons are known by everybody. Again, very close to the royal family. His name is Fahd El-Jabri, which he's a very, very popular guy. And he basically is saying the same thing. He's basically referencing the direction. He makes a statement that involves what we call the direction of the prayers of the Jews. And he's basically saying Al-Jabri is actually implicitly recognizing the Jewish connection to the Temple Mount. And he's contradicting directly the Palestinian narrative on that particular subject. So it shouldn't be a surprise to us because God said that it would happen. We just didn't know how he would do it, and it looks like he's already laying down the groundwork to make that happen, and it's pretty incredible.
I find this whole thing absolutely amazing to watch what we are watching and how it's happening just all of a sudden, the whole tide turns. And nobody's listening to the Palestinian narrative anymore. The Biden administration is trying to drive it. The UN is trying to drive it, but we're watching what is happening. It is fascinating. There's more things that are developing that I'd love to get into with you next week that I can't. But right now, I want to bring up the Iran situation. This will be our last thing for today because this is just amazing. This article says the chess pieces are being moved into place for a major war in the Middle East. And then there's this out of the Jerusalem Post. 71st Armored Battalion completes preparations for war on the northern front. And then typical of Iran, will level Tel Aviv. Iran responds to Israel preparing strike plans against nuclear sites. And then, I don't know if you heard of this, Biden approves release of $3 billion in Iranian funds President Trump had frozen. Imagine that, $3 billion for Iran. Didn't his former boss do something like that, Obama?
Obama did way worse than that. Obama gave hundreds of billions in cash.
It was like a 50 billion or 150 billion.
No, I think it was 180 billion in cash.
180 billion. Well, this is just the beginning. Okay. And then there's this alarm in White House over escalating attacks on Saudi Arabia. Last article, I think you saw this one out of Debka. Iran piles on aggression emboldened by U.S. Saudi Israeli restraint. Get this. This is for all of our audience. U.S. goodwill gestures are warning signals have clearly lost their punch for Iran, even when backed by the mighty U.S. B-52 bombers flying over their heads. Remember that earlier in the week? After dozens of attacks on Saudi Arabia in recent weeks, Iran-backed Yemeni Houthi rebels outdid themselves on March 8th by sending 14 armed drones, 8 ballistic missiles flying toward the Saudi petrol tank farm at Ras Tanura, one of the largest oil shipping ports in the world, and the residential area of Dhahran that houses foreign oil workers, including Americans. A gag order from Riyadh, I can't remember. How do you pronounce that? Riyadh?
Riyadh. Different people say different ways. Yeah, Riyadh.
Concealed the scale of injuries on damage. And then on the same day, I'm almost done here. On the same day, 2 heavy nuclear-capable U.S. B-52 Fortress bombers made a round trip to the Gulf and back to home base, escorted through the skies of the region by British, Israeli, Saudi, and Qatari planes. This was the heavy bomber's 7th mission over the Gulf, 2nd since Joe Biden took office. But the Americans said this is the Americans' response to what Iran is doing. You ready? This is a quote. This is the Biden, excuse me, that was part of my lunch. The Biden administration, here's the response to Iran. Quote, they need to stop attacking and start negotiating. Stop doing this to us. Stop doing this. You guys are very bad over there. By the way, here's $3 billion. By the way, seriously, they need to stop attacking us.
Look, first of all, we all know that Joe Biden is really, truly not the president of the United States. It might be Kamala Harris. It might be his chief of staff. It might be, the industrial war machine that wants to make money off of the death of the generations and futures of a lot of people around the world. But we can tell you this right now, it isn't Joe Biden. It's some kind of cabal that's really ruling this empty-shelled individual who, listen, it's elder abuse. He doesn't even know, his ABCs, basically. This is a guy who he gets up there and he starts to name and thank people that he's worked with for 45 years. And he can't remember their names, and then says, what am I doing here? I don't know what I'm doing here. And he reaches in for his, card that isn't going to save him for anything. It's sad. And this is the guy who is called the commander-in-chief of our country, and he's allowing this kind of nonsense to actually take place. And by the way, this thing with Iran getting emboldened is something that isn't just a responsibility or a problem of the United States of America. This is also a problem that we're talking about Russia. And by the way, this has a lot to do with Sudan and everything that's going on with Libya right now in their civil war that Russia is getting involved with. And everything where you see all of this stuff beginning to pop off, this has Russia's fingerprint over it all over the place, which basically tells me we are approaching very quickly Ezekiel chapter 38. That's exactly what we're actually seeing over here. I'm going to bring up a picture of a map of Africa because I want you guys to look at something. If you can focus on this, I want you to pay attention to where the Sudan is, okay? If you notice on the Sudan, when you go to the eastern portion of the Sudan, you'll actually notice that there is a body of water that is right there, and the Sudan has rights to be able to set up whatever they want as a sovereign nation on that shore. Now, even though the Sudan has signed a normalization agreement with Israel, they have also signed a formal agreement with Russia, allowing Russia to set up naval bases that's over there. And by the way, this may involve the contracting and the passage of Chinese ships for what they call commercial and economic purposes. Now, we all know that if you've got a Chinese cargo ship that's going up this area, I promise you, they will be bringing things with them. And by the way, let me just also say, the Suez Canal, they're looking at making negotiations to be able to run things from the Mediterranean into where the Suez Canal is. Now, if you look at on this map, if you look at where Egypt is, okay, where you're talking like right there, Northeast Africa. By the way, that's the country that my mom and dad were born and raised in. The Suez Canal is right there in that area, and they're looking at passing larger cargo ships through there to gain faster access to this body of water that's outside of the Sudan. Now, I don't know if that's actually going to work, but I can just simply tell you that people are setting stuff up. And by the way, it's very interesting. Now there's a movement, believe it or not. You see Somalia that's over here on this far corner, and you see the Indian Ocean that kind of borders Somalia, and then you see Kenya right below there. And then if you look up, you'll see Ethiopia and Uganda. Well, guess what? They're beginning to have conversations now to normalize some type of a formal agreement between Russia and them. And it's interesting because they can create a bit of a land bridge that would go from Ethiopia into the Sudan, off from the north, I would probably call it the northwest corner of the Sudan, into Libya, which gives them direct access into the Mediterranean to do whatever they want as they work with what could potentially be Turkey coming from that area and all of that other place. So they bypass the need for the land bridge problem that they had with Iraq, and they get over the other way. And by the way, what this ends up doing is it ends up putting them in a really bad place with respect to their energy consumption. They're going to consume a whole lot more of it. They don't have the ability to be able to do it. all the time while Israel is now becoming more energy independent than it has ever before. They're producing more oil than they ever have before. They're not even drilling offshore. So they're doing some drilling offshore in the Mediterranean, but they're not even doing much of that. And they're producing more oil than what they know what to do with. And guess what? They're starting to sell that oil. And not only are they starting to sell that oil, they're successfully beginning to look at exporting some of that oil into some of the European nations, and that's ticking off Russia because it's getting in the way of their pipeline. And you know what's going to end up happening? All of those nations, the Sudan, Libya, Russia, right, Turkey, Iran, all of those nations that are right there are going to attack Israel because they're going to want the natural resources that they have, as you see stipulated in Ezekiel chapter 38. Yeah. It's very interesting that this thought that God condemns is going to go into their minds to literally march into this country that no longer has fenced cities. They're going to have a sort of an open, secure, economically free kind of a country, and it's going to get invaded by people that they're on good terms with. And by the way, do not close your eyes to what you're seeing going on with Morocco and the normalization agreement that they have there, because that's got a lot to do with what you're seeing in Western Sahara and what's happening in Israel right now with some of the politics involved in there, and Mauritania and Algeria. It is very, 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 very interesting to consider what's actually happening in all of these little, well, I don't call them little, all of these big countries, but they're all contributing to the dynamic that we're looking at in the Middle East. Folks, you better wake up, because let me just tell you, Jesus is coming soon, and we've got the evidence to show it right here.
Yeah. You know what? You just hit the nail on the head with everything. That map is fantastic. Everybody can see what's going on. And James, putting a little bit more perspective, just adding to everything that you said. So we were talking about the Temple Mount issue, what the Saudis are now saying, and you look at the countries of Ezekiel 38 that protest the invasion of Russia, Iran, Turkey, Sudan, all these. I mean, you look at everything being set up. You look at the Russian naval bases there in the Sudan, and then there's now, get this, a proposed oil line going from Saudi Arabia, from I think it's Daman in Saudi Arabia on the Persian Gulf coast, all the way through Saudi Arabia, through Jordan, through the Jezreel Valley, all the way to Haifa to sell oil to Europe also. And you look at this and you're going, you already said, Don Stewart says it all the time, you can't make this stuff up. But these things are happening in real time right now, and the Bible said 3,000 years ago, this is the way things are going to look.
And OPEC is going to pay Israel to take this oil off their hands.
That's amazing.
Israel is going to be in the same position that the United States was in recently when we were being paid by the Middle East to take oil off of their hands.
That's amazing.
That's exactly what's going to happen. That's exactly what's happening.
It's just totally amazing to watch all of this come together. You can't make this stuff up. The only way you could possibly know that the direction that things were going to go was by reading your Bible and knowing what the Bible says about the signs of the last days and how it's coming together. We couldn't have predicted that, but we do know how it's all going to end. And man, we are watching it.
And I have a friend, this is really interesting. I have a friend who's a policeman who basically told me a long time ago, he said, James, there's this new oil company that's starting up in Israel, and I'm going to make a heavy investment in it. It's not a lot, but nobody really believes in them, but I do, and I think they're going to strike energy. I think they're going to find black gold all over through that country. And I just looked at him and I said, you know what? He sounds crazy, but I promise you he's not. He is literally betting on what the Bible says. I can promise you that. And sure enough, I can tell you this right now, my buddy's about to become a very rich man because of some of the investments that he's made, because it was smart. It was really smart, because if you believe in the Bible, you're going to bet on the Bible every time, right?
Yeah. Amen. Amen. No matter what's going on in the news, you look at the Bible, you can say, I don't care what this says and that says. I know which direction this is going, and that temple is going to be built on that gold dome that's right over your left shoulder.
Absolutely right, bro. I agree 100%. I've always, it's really funny. I used to believe that it was going to be built to the north of that dome.
I did too.
And had a couple of conversations with you, Don Stewart, and a few others. And I'm like, you know what? I have not been looking at this correctly. And this is really a matter of faith. And even if we had put it on the Golden Dome, it wouldn't have even worked. It wouldn't even make sense. A lot of people look at the passage in Revelation that talks about the court of the Gentiles not being measured. And they think that that's referring to the Golden Dome being side by side. It's just not true.
Yeah.
That court that they're talking about is a part of the original construct of the temple. There was always a court for Gentiles to be a part of. And just like we see in Ezekiel, the instruction to not measure it, it's the same thing. It's a very consistent thing. And one of the things people forget about the book of Revelation is that Revelation is really exactly that. It is the revealing of all of the principles that we have been taught in the Old Testament. I mean, that's really what you're doing. If you know the Old Testament really well, when you read Revelation, you're going to be mind blown because you feel like, dude, this is like I'm reading the Old Testament all over again, because that's exactly what it is.
It is. It's just put into the New Testament at the end, and it's revealing the way it's all going to go down as all those different prophetic passages are brought together. James, that was a great program today. Thank you very much. I know you're a very busy man.
We're out of time already?
It's been a while, yeah.
Oh my
that was
goodness.
Great. That was great. I want to talk to you about this oil stuff next week. I'm going to get some facts gathered together. We're going to have a blast.
I think we should get some money together and go invest. What do you think?
I think that would be a great idea, but I'm hoping Jesus comes soon.
Yeah, that's true. He's probably coming back before that happens.
The way things are looking, yeah. Hey, thank you very much. Hey, listen, everybody, again, you can find us on our websites, James at Calvary Chapel Signal Hill, me at hopeforourtimes.com. For my videos, I know I'm on YouTube and other places, but I would encourage you to go to hopeforourtimes.com. We will have our own server. I post news, and all my updates are there now. All of them with James are on there. James, you're all over. You're on every time I open up my phone, I see a picture of you. Every time. I don't know if that's good or bad, but every time. Instagram,
probably very
Facebook,
bad.
YouTube, you're everywhere.
Yeah, it's a blessing. And so, we would encourage you guys. Listen, I am asking for a favor. I would ask that if you have not subscribed to us on YouTube, Calvary Chapel Signal Hill, that you would please do that. It would really help us. Also on Rumble. I know Tom has got thousands and thousands of people on Rumble. I would appreciate it if you would also just hit the subscribe button on my Rumble channel. That's James Cadiz. And then please on Instagram, that would also be a help. The more of you guys that subscribe, the more influence we're able to have and the kind of changes that we have. I can tell you, I can make this statement to you right now. If Tom did not have 80,000 followers on YouTube, there's no way he would have gotten any of that stuff back. But because he has so many followers, the social media people tend to actually work a little closer to try and resolve things, especially when it's something that they know that they messed up. And sometimes that's not the case. I mean, we watch what happened to the president and Mike Lindell and all these other guys. But at the same time, the more of you guys that support us, the better. And, we're putting in all this time and energy and effort. And the only thing that we ask is that you subscribe to us and that you're watching the videos, because we want to bless you.
Amen. Thank you, James. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We will see you next week, unless we're in heaven. Bye.